up, move it, take it up, get it, light it up, move.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Women's Foundation live stream. My name is Andrea, and I am here with Paulette Senior. We are both employed by the Canadian Women's Foundation. Hi, Paulette.
Hi, everyone.
So I just want to start by saying hello and happy Gender Equality Week. If you weren't aware, this is Canada's official Gender Equality Week. All week we're celebrating and talking about gender equality and what it means, and challenging ourselves as well too to make changes and really get to the systemic level of change, what we have to do to make Canada a gender equal country. So I just want to start off by giving you a little bit of background for those of you who may not know the Canadian Women's Foundation. The Canadian Women's Foundation is Canada's public foundation for women and girls and gender equality. We support diverse women, girls, and everybody affected by gender inequality to move out of poverty, out of violence, and into confidence and leadership. And of course, these days, we're very focused on the unique ways that the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting women and girls. And we want to make sure that there's a recovery process that actually resets normal and makes it better for everyone. And that's why we've launched the Tireless Together Fund. It's an emergency response fund for the COVID-19 crisis. We want to make sure that women and girls get every support that they need in every province and territory. And we really are emphasizing the importance of gender-specific programming for women, girls, trans, two-spirit, and non-binary people. This is very important. So if you are able to support, I would encourage you to go to our website, CanadianWomen.org. You can always go and find out more about the fund and donate if you're able to. So I want to just introduce our topic with Paulette Senior, President and CEO of the Canadian Women's Foundation. Canada's hard-won gender equality gains are at risk in the pandemic. Women's participation in the labor market is at a historic low. Risks of gender-based violence may be on the rise. We're seeing all indications that it is. And marginalized women are at especially high risk of the virus and of the impacts of the virus. So we know tomorrow is going to be the speech from the throne. So we just wanted an opportunity to just talk to Paulette and get some ideas. What we're calling this is 5 bold ideas that are very crucial right now that we need in Canada's pandemic recovery plan for gender justice. And for Paulette, I'm just going to give you a bit of an introduction about her. She's devoted her life and career, life and career.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way to say it, right? She's really been breaking down systemic barriers and building up diverse women and girls her whole career. Her personal experience immigrating from Jamaica to Canada really ignited her interest in social justice and helped to make her the dynamic and grounded leader she is today. Her career began in social services, where she witnessed the need for systemic change that will make a difference for women's lives, and also the power of putting women's voices and equity-seeking voices first. She's earned numerous awards, is one of the most respected women leaders in Canada, and she joined the foundation in 2016. Her focus is to bolster an inclusive national movement for gender equality across Canada, and we're really thankful and excited about that. So before we get started officially, just a couple of things. If we get cut off, just hang tight. We're going to come right back on. Sometimes technology is not our friend. And please don't click on any links that you see below that you don't recognize. Sometimes people do really bad things on social media, try to get you away from things where you don't intend to go. Don't click on anything that you don't recognize. If anything, just go to CanadianWomen.org. That's the website you want to see. So welcome, Paulette, again. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Angela. Andrea, did I call you Angela? You call me Lights. I'm calling you Angela. No, thank you, Angela.
There you go. Okay.
I'm thinking of Angela.
We have Angela in our midst, so I don't mind getting associated. Okay. First of all, I want to say welcome, and how are you, and where are you?
You know, as you were reading that little piece about me, one of the words that it said was grounded. And I think about grounded right now, and I think about how important it is to feel grounded and to make sure that my feet are kind of solidly planted in the work that we're doing in the midst of a pandemic. And that's not an easy thing. And it's very easy to be thrown off. And so, I want to say first that I'm well. that I'm in the GTA. I live in Pickering, and I'm doing my best to keep up the good work, the great work that we're all doing, no matter where we're doing it from or what organization that we're with, so that's kind of where I am and how I'm doing, and the thoughts that I have right now about being grounded.
Fantastic. And folks, just to let you know that there seems to be a bit of a lag, but we will continue on because it seems like the audio is coming through clearly. So just listen and try not to get too distracted by the bit of a lag that we have in the video. So I just wanted to ask you, Paulette, we're here to talk about the 5 bold ideas to boost gender equality in the pandemic. Now, I know the foundation has come up with this idea of resetting normal and coming up with new ways of doing things. Tell us about those 5 big ideas that we need to be paying attention to right now.
Okay. All right. Well, hang on to your seat because it's going to take me a little while to go through them, but I think I should and I must. And it starts with supporting women majority care workforces through designated federal transfers in order to create high quality care economy jobs, proven essential in the pandemic and in the recovery. And I think everyone can relate to that. And this, of course, must include ensuring that migrant women have access to secure livelihoods and citizenship. So that is the first. The second is about implementing an affordable, high quality national early child care and plan that is community responsive and nonprofit. And all of those words are important because it describes the philosophy, the approach, and the importance of it being accessible. And then thirdly is the importance of rolling out an evidence-based national action plan on gender-based violence. And that has to be tied to a tailored plan for Indigenous women related to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and connected to a national action plan for gender equity. And I think everyone will agree that that is crucial. Fourth is about having a model and being able to test a gender relevant basic income model. And everyone who's been paying attention, you'll know that issues around basic income models are being talked about in the media, including in particular the needs of older women and women with disabilities. Fifth, and not least, is that it's about living up to Canada's steering role in the UN Beijing +25 Action Coalition on Feminist Movements and Leadership, and develop a state-of-the-art, sector-led, all-government advisory group for intersectionality. This should really, truly include a national summit, policy consultations, community-based program that's co-created, and commitment to sustainable funding for diverse movement building in Canada. So that's critical. And, just to add a couple more points to that is that these are not the only things that need to happen, but they are broad strokes that will make a fundamental difference. And that also, that even though these ideas are bold, they're not new. They represent what many of the women's sector and feminist movements have been saying for decades. And so we are really ensuring that these items remain on the agenda, the government's agenda, and society's agenda as a whole. And I just also want to give a shout out to the many organizations and movements who have been doing this work, who are speaking to an intersectional, feminist, and gender-based recovery. So those are, in quick order, the 5 bold ideas.
Thank you so much for that. So I want to just kind of narrow in on a couple of things. First, let's talk about this women majority workforces. First of all, what are they? And what's happening in the pandemic with them that's just unique that we have to think about?
Well, these are strange times. I don't think any of us who've been doing this work for as long as we have were around 100 years ago. And therefore, we're kind of figuring things out as we go along. But there's certain things that we knew before the pandemic struck, right? So women in Canada tend to be the most precarious in terms of their work. They work part-time, they're underpaid, they're paid less by way of benefits and union protections, and the processes are in place. We also know that these are our service and care jobs, such as home care and cleaning and retail, store clerks, child minding, child care, elder care, all of these care focused jobs, and nonprofit frontline workers. And traditionally, these have been undervalued as women's work, and women's work is often written off as something we don't pay much attention to or pay much in our society. We also know that this pandemic has highlighted how important this work really is to us, and we would not have survived without it. But this, as we know, was the workforce that lost their jobs and really did not recover compared to others. And that women's participation in the paid labor force is at an all-time low. Another thing that we knew is that this, when you pair this with the reality that this workforce that has remained is at a high risk of COVID-19, we've seen that from the research that's done in the province and different parts of the country, show that those getting the virus disproportionately are Black and racialized women and women with precarious immigration status, and that these are women who brought in as caregivers and care workers to help fill a gap in our economy. And finally, we also have to take care of the workers, right? So we have to take care of the workers who take care of us every single day. Take care of our safety, take care of our health, take care of our communities, take care of our homes, take care of the food we eat. And they're doing this to their risk and that of their families.
You really, I think, brought it to light, this idea of who the risk we're seeing. It's starting to split down lines in a really clear way as more data comes out, as people are starting to think about race-based data, especially in Ontario, but there's other places as well that are starting to see how important this is. And I think that one of the things we'll see more and more is how those most marginalized amongst us, those with the highest vulnerability and barriers, are the ones who, take this risk on a long-term basis. So it's a real scary thing right now, I think, for a lot of us who are racialized. I know certainly in my family, and I know, Paulette, you've seen it in your friends and family as well, too, that we've seen who's getting sick. And it's so scary. It is women, it is healthcare workers, it is folks who are doing home care, childcare, all those things. Thank you for bringing that up. So that issue of childcare, let's turn to that, because that's on the brain right now for so many of us. And I think people are thinking about that as well as in the context of the schools and, what's going on with both of those systems right now. Why is childcare so essential to gender equality in Canada? And what does basic income also have to do with it? You did mention that, a basic income pilot.
So that's a great question. And the issue of childcare cannot go unnoticed, especially now. We know, for example, that 1 in 3 women in Canada are actually making decision about having to weigh the safety of their child going back to school or daycare, or actually giving up their careers to stay home with their children. That can't be the reality for us, right? And so we know that women have been doing childcare for free. It's been the society that we've inherited and continue to live in and accept for too long. And it's been unaffordable, uneven across regions, and inaccessible. We also know that childcare has been seen as largely a caregiver's private responsibility, a so-called mother's private responsibility. That is far from reality, even though it's been the practice, because we know that childcare has to be a critical part of how we structure a society. And so if we don't have a proper response in place, that there are those of us, women, who have to be doing this work for free, and it becomes our sole responsibility. And this unpaid work has been essential to our society. We know that we should invest in it so it's not so hard and so everyone gets access. We also know that time spent on unpaid childcare means less time for paid work and school to build up job opportunities. For example, women need it to be able to improve their quality of life, and a higher quality of life for women improves life for families and communities on a whole. Basic income, as you said, is again something people have been talking about for a very long time. Basic income is a mechanism that people have spoken about to raise the floor, because poverty is ironically expensive to maintain. That shouldn't be rocket science, but somehow we've missed that in society. And then a gendered lens on basic income is essential. It could, again, help women to be able to afford childcare and other basic needs to improve their job opportunities and income levels at least. And finally, if we know that this is important and folks want to learn more, so I invite you to go to our website for more information on what gender relevant basic income could look like and mean. And that would be canadianwoman.org.
Thanks, Paulette. Really, this basic income piece, I think it's so interesting, and it's really a way of resetting normal, I think, in that kind of big picture way. But as you said, it's nothing new in terms of what people have been saying, that we need to raise that floor. Something that's also not new is the discussion on gender-based violence, because we knew gender-based violence was already high. It was already at a pandemic level before the pandemic. People talked about how the fact that a woman is killed by her intimate partner on average every 6 days in Canada, that is unacceptable. And we've been talking about this idea of having a national action plan, like a big vision to do something to address it in a proactive way, as also a reactive way, better systems, better policies, practices, programs in place. I don't specifically have been asked this question a lot, and I'm wondering if you can give us our insight. Why has the pandemic led to this increase in violence? So we've been seeing like the rates perhaps going up. It's kind of early to say, but people have been talking about more calls to particularly police services and violence prevention agencies. And then also, strangely, at the same time, sometimes deathly quiet. People not calling the services, and that really is an indication. Both sides can be a really dangerous indication that people are so stuck with their abusers that they can't even seek help. So give us a sense of what is special about this pandemic context that might have just boosted that level of an already high rate of violence.
So the pandemic has really spotlighted and worsened existing problems. Violence was already at a pandemic level in Canada before, and on average, we've known the stats. Many folks know the stats. Those of us that work in the sector know the stat that a woman is killed by her intimate partner every 6 days in Canada, right? So that is a sobering stat. And if we think about that, that's at least once a week, if not more. So and some were at even higher risk of violence. We know that some women, particularly women with disabilities, Indigenous women, young women, to name a few, or at higher risk. So what we're saying is that we live in a society where we have accepted for years that it's okay that on average, one woman is killed every 6 days in our country. That's already, to me, a pandemic. In past global pandemics and disasters, there has been a bump, if you will, in gender-based violence, and even new forms of violence have arisen. And where there's a baseline of misogyny and controlling behaviors and violence, you can see how this might increase in the higher pressure of the pandemic. So with the necessity of physical distancing and isolation, women might actually be trapped at home, and were trapped at home with abusers, and who controlled and monitored their every movement, and therefore less able to escape, find reprieve, or even reach out for help. So, we were pondering this, and then this is the reason why we launched the Signal for Help campaign, to raise awareness about the issue and to use the increase in video calls as a tool people can access if they need help. And it just basically says, I need help. And the pandemic makes the calls for a national action plan. This is why. The pandemic makes the calls for a national action plan on gender-based violence even more important, and really needs to be a part of our recovery response and process.
So Paulette, I'm wondering if we can coordinate right now on camera and actually show the Signal for Help for those folks who don't know about it. If you can find it, find your camera and do it. That's how you can do it, folks. Yep, one move. And
Yeah.
as Paulette mentioned, it means I need help. Check in with me safely is what it means. It doesn't mean take over for me. It doesn't mean call the police. It doesn't mean do anything for me. It means check in with me, tell me, where perhaps I can go for help, listen to me, take my lead. So yes, if you want to learn more about the Signal for Help, you can absolutely do so on our website, canadianwomen.org. And that's really the end of our scripted questions that we also wanted to just make sure we got out in the beginning, but we wanted to ask for your questions and your comments. So let's move to that. I have some great comments here, and I think perhaps let's do this one here. Let's show this. A lot of people have been talking about the need to rethink work, just the concept of work. And what are some things workplaces can do to contribute to boost gender equality right now?
Well, these are really good questions, and this one in particular is being asked a lot, especially now in the pandemic, but also in terms of all the various issues around equity that's happening, right? Where lots of organizational leaders, corporate, not-profit, everyone is asking what can they do. And so I think, in order to do that, it's about listening to folks, around really paying attention. What's really happening in your organization? Take a look, at, for example, your leadership. And does your leadership actually respond to what really needs to be happening in terms of promoting gender equality? This is important. Listen to what women are saying, looking at where women are placed in your organization. What are some of the initiatives that you can put in place to support women's movement in terms of gender equality? Checking in on what's happening, being sensitive, being supportive. The signal for help is actually a bit of an idea that is about really tuning into what's happening in your neighborhood, in your community, particularly when people are isolated and working from home. And what does that mean? For a lot of people, being able to go to work was a reprieve, right? So making sure that you understand what folks are going through and just checking in on them. And also when it comes to gender equality in your workplaces, think about it as gender equity. Think about the importance of ensuring that we're doing everything we can to either mentor, sponsor, support, all the things that you would need in terms of your own advancement. Consider that we need to do that for women in the workforce. Consider that we need to do that to ensure that women are able to advance, and consider the importance of actually even speaking to your elected officials, for example. Elected officials need to know that gender equality is critical, especially now. And the pandemic has brought about the impact of having 1 in 3 women decide what they want to do, if they want to go back to work or not. And this is not the kind of society that we want. We don't want to be rolled back 3 decades. And that's the risk that we're at right now, is that gender equality gains can be rolled back by 3 decades. So if that's not what we want, then really looking across our networks, across every possible source of support that we have to ensure that we're doing all we can in our workplaces, in our communities, and individually to ensure that we're boosting gender equality. Long-winded answer, but hopefully it makes the point.
Thank you for that. And we just have a few more minutes. So I do want to ask this question. I think this is a really good one. This idea of the role of nonprofits. People have been talking about that. Imagine Canada, ONN have talked about that. What are some things that the government you feel needs to do to ensure that the nonprofit sector stays afloat right now? They're really suffering, and we've seen huge, like in the billions in terms of losses, in terms of revenue, especially when it comes to services and supports and nonprofits that are geared towards women, girls, and the communities that rely on them.
That's a good question. So, one of the things that we have said to government, as well as folks right across the sector, especially those who are more resourced than others, is the importance of ensuring that the sector is sustained. And the reason why that's important, particularly those who are serving the most vulnerable in society, the sustainability of the sector is important, because don't forget, these organizations came about in response to issues in their communities. So whether they're focused on gender-based violence, whether they're focused on empowering girls, whether they're focused on various aspects of program services that respond to community needs, it's really important that we're having investment in the sector to ensure that the sector can continue to not just stay afloat, but to be able to operate in ways that women and girls and communities can actually access the services. And these services are important. It keeps people safe, it keeps them housed, it keeps them supported. They could be focused on issues around mental health, they could be focused on issues around ensuring folks can stay in their homes. And all of this is important. And were they not in place, then I don't even want to imagine the kind of society that we would have. And the government would be well served to be ensuring that the nonprofit sector not just stays afloat, but actually is able to thrive, especially at the time that it's needed most.
Thank you, Paulette. That's really wonderful. And I think that there's lots of things that we can do as individuals as well to support the nonprofits. So as well as governmental action, community action can also be there. People always talk about your time, your treasure, your talent, being able to get to that. And I know it's complicated in the pandemic dynamic, but perhaps there are things we can still do in our communities as people are already doing, right? So we have come to the end of our time. Thank you very much, Paulette, for joining us and giving us this insight. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your clarity here.
Thanks for having me, Andrea. Most appreciated. And I look forward to other such events where we can actually share ideas and hear from folks in terms of how they're doing as well.
There'll definitely be more, and we'll be pulling on you for that, for sure.
Okay. All right.
So I just want to close us off now, as we have, come to the end of our time. This was a short and sweet one, but I hope that you got some good information here. And I would just want to flag for you some upcoming events. We have a few exciting things coming up. I want to share with you, first of all, this Friday, we have a great event with Tessa McWatt. She is the writer of Shame on Me, An Anatomy of Race and Belonging. This is a memoir. And it is fantastic. It was a fabulous read. It is what I consider required reading right now. So I do hope that you would be able to join us on September the 25th. That's this Friday at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. And we also have this event coming up. It's a webinar, Resetting Normal, an Intersectional Analysis of the Speech from the Throne. So, we have today, we're talking about 5 bold ideas, and next week on September the 30th, we're going to talk about a bit of an analysis. What did we hear and what needs to be done? What are people saying about it? We have lots of voices in this, not just the Canadian Women's Foundation, but other partners' voices to get their insight and their brilliance on this. So, I just want to end by telling you this. We are, of course, really focused on what needs to happen right now, the recovery process, and getting out of this COVID-19 pandemic better than we've been. We know that people were vulnerable, and that's why the pandemic has really opened up those cracks and made them bigger. So it's time for us to reset normal. And that's why we launched the Tireless Together Fund. Again, I mentioned it's a COVID-19 emergency response fund. If you would like to know more, if you would like to give, we appreciate your support. Every dollar counts and will make a difference. Please give at CanadianWomen.org. And I will leave you with this video. It speaks a little bit about that idea of resetting normal and what you can do right now just by signing online our petition. So take a look at it right now.
When COVID-19 spread in Canada, women were affected beyond the virus. Women accounted for almost 2/3 of early job losses, despite making up only half the paid workforce. Risks of violence increased, and calls to crisis lines surged. Demands of caregiving, homeschooling, and work skyrocketed. The virus can infect anyone, but the pandemic's impacts are different for some people. It has deepened inequalities for diverse women and two-spirit, trans, and non-binary people. As we rebuild from the pandemic, we can't accept a new normal where people are worse off than before. Let's reset normal by putting gender equality at the center, because gender equality puts everyone in a position to thrive. Reset normal, so everyone gets a living wage and equal pay, so everyone is safe from gender-based violence. So childcare, elder care, and housing are safe, affordable, and accessible. Act now. Let's reset normal. Sign the petition.